Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Mastering Midlife, How to Thrive When the World Asks the Most of You. I am your host, Mark Silverman. Today, I have the pleasure of talking to Liza Morales. She's known as being the ex-partner of basketball player Lamar Odom. That's not why she's on the program. I've heard her speak and I've heard her story. And she's now a real estate agent in New York. She's very successful in her own right. She's a mom of two children that are here with her. And she wants to share with the world about her life with how addiction has affected her family. And growing up, you grew up in the Caribbean, or you're
No,
from your family?
originally from Puerto Rico, but I grew up in Queens.
Okay.
Queens, New York, yes.
And how? So the reason I do that little segue is how a lot of families don't talk about these things. So Liza, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I am so excited. The more research I did about you, and our mutual friend Ellie Nash recommended you, and so far everybody he's brought to my program has saved lives, frankly. So you're here because I know your heart already, and I know that you just want to be on here, not for notoriety, not for any of this, not to cash in on anything, but because you care about people. So let's talk about your origin story. Every hero's journey has an origin story of why this is your subject that you're coming out into the world to talk about.
Okay. I think honestly, we're going back quite a few years now. But being with Lamar, and he was already a public figure, in the basketball world, and he had his struggles, but we were young, so I didn't really understand the struggles. Looking back in hindsight, of course, I understand there was major depression there, and there was major filling of that void there. So I think I've had to learn a lot through the years about depression, the connection to addiction, and how things can kind of spiral out of control. We had kids, so I had to do my homework and talk to specialists, talk to doctors.
So the question before all the famous bouts with public addiction happened, did you know about the depression?
I did. But I also thought he was just tired a lot, he slept a lot when he was home. But I guess because my family, we really didn't talk about depression. And, I feel like a lot of families don't, just kind of like kitchen table talk.
And you mentioned it's in your family also.
Yes. Depression. I think some people have depression there, but they don't talk about it. I see it because I've had to recognize it. And then I was diagnosed myself with depression in 2009. And so I definitely had to do my own research because I feel like my family didn't really talk about it too much, honestly.
So why come out and talk about it now? You're successful with your real estate. Your children seem to be doing well. Why do you want to be public about this?
I think because Lamar's journey is public. He recently just wrote a book. And I feel like because he's so public, we're mentioned in the book. And I feel like it's kind of a duty in a way, because we've had to deal with it privately in our own home, getting my kids the help they need, and doing all the research that I needed to do. So I feel like we have a duty now. He has this platform. Look, our situation is not unique. A lot of families all over the world deal with what we deal with depression, anxiety, and addiction. A lot of families, especially here in the States, with a major opioid problem. But I think what makes us unique is that Lamar is a public figure and he's constantly in the press. So that's what makes us unique. And we're having to deal with it publicly. TMZ will publish a story on him. And for a long time, we dealt with it in shame,
Especially because when I was doing my research on you, the way you're portrayed in a lot of ways, because it's public, isn't three-dimensional. Like,
no.
It isn't a three-dimensional family with feelings, thoughts, history, and all that stuff. So so I think bringing that out so that you can be a person in your own right.
Yes, and
show
show the face of it. Like, I feel like, a lot of times with addicts, you look at like, oh, you're an addict, but they have families, they have loved ones that deal with it on a day-to-day basis. We have worries, we have concerns. And so I feel like it was a duty. And I feel like it's also therapeutic to connect with people, for people who don't have a platform, for families. Not too long ago, maybe last year, I actually joined like a family addict anonymous, for the families. And I got to tell you, it was like it was online forum, and I covered my face. I put a little piece of paper on, and they were like, oh, and I think I changed my name. And the instructor was like, do you want to share your name? And we noticed that you're not really sure. And it was a little bit of, I wasn't ready yet, because it's been so public. And now I know I'm willing to show my face and say, you know what, I'm ready now, to say, you know what, everybody has issues. When I was sharing stories with those families and hearing the heartbreak of parents that are dealing with kids and their problems, I'm like, wow, maybe my stuff isn't so bad. You do connect, and the heartbreak and the concern, it's just so real, so like raw. So I just feel like it's a duty, and I'm feeling good about it, just that connection, and it's therapeutic.
Well, thank you for doing it. So let's go back. Let's talk about so before, because again, I've seen some of the healing. Let's go back to when it wasn't. What were the effects of having this in the middle of your family?
Lack of sleep, not wondering if Lamar was going to OD, which obviously he did in 2015. But prior to him having that incident in Vegas, it was a concern for probably about a year and a half. He was spiraling. I was getting the phone calls from the friends, and so that were concerned. And in the middle of that, we lost a high school friend, Jamie Sengotai, to heroin addiction, and that grew from surgery he had, and opioids that he was taking for pain surgery for his pain, and then it graduated to heroin, and we had actually lost him, and that was real for me, and for my kids, because he was great with my kids. Got a really bad rap in the press, by the way, but his heart was really good, and he was a funny guy. So that was like, wow, I hope this is like a wake-up moment for Lamar, and it wasn't, it wasn't. So I think going through that stress, my kids being stressed.
So yes, let's talk specifically about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your life, because your life was pretty separate. But what was it like raising your children with them watching their father basically kill himself every single day?
Yes, and publicly. And then there were, it was really hard for my kids, and my daughter is very transparent now. She was in high school, and we know that's a really pivotal time in anybody's life. And she would hear things on the radio, she was a fan of certain radio shows, and they would make comments about her father, and that was tough on her. And then even going on the internet and seeing the memes. There was a couple of memes with Lamar and his addiction, and comparing him to that Dave Chappelle skit. Just really tough for teenagers to take that in. And we did start seeing a therapist, an amazing doctor that told me, you have to talk to your kids about addiction. You have to. They were younger; they would be 14 and 11. She said, talk to them about their father, that he loves them. This has nothing to do with him not loving them. Tell them, so she gave me help, and then I was able to pass that on to my kids.
Because he was absent, so it was you.
Yes, it was me. It was solely me, and then dealing with the pressures of the tabloids, and everybody looking down on him. There is a major discrepancy with certain addicts. Like, it's looked at differently. Just being frank. When it's a cocaine problem and it's, white America, it's looked at a little differently compared to when it's Black America.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's totally looked at differently. And so I think we're just trying to bridge that gap and say, look, addiction is addiction. Doesn't matter what financial situation you're in. It's addiction, and it's the brain, it's an illness. So I think that's why me trying to share my story is kind of me. If I can educate people, I'm not an expert, I'm not a doctor, but whatever I can, that's because I had to learn a lot,
So let's go back to that. So you said you found this doctor who first helped you. It's like how did you put the oxygen mask on yourself so that you could actually go be there for your kids?
Doing a lot of research, doing a lot of homework, watching documentaries, calling specialists. Because at the time when Lamar was spiraling, we wanted to get him into rehab, right? So I built connections with those people. And I actually connected with a former addict that actually was in the NBA many years ago. And he almost lost his whole family, and his wife was ready to leave him. And now he's like an addiction specialist out in Cape Cod. And I had his number whenever I needed to vent, and he would, so I just basically educating myself. So if I'm educated and I could pass that on to my kids as best as I could. And I think throughout all that, I gained empathy for Lamar and his addiction. I mean, that's what it's about. Like you, and for other addicts, you gain empathy. You're not looking down on them.
So now that you have empathy for your, because when you have the sheer anger, the resentment, the hatred, how are you going to talk to the man's children, right? Now,
Yes.
so now you educated yourself. You got empathy. You knew it wasn't personal. You knew it wasn't like he wasn't doing this on purpose, right? He's responsible for his actions, but he wasn't doing it on purpose, and he wasn't doing it to you and the kids. So
Yes.
now you can talk to your kids. So now, how did you approach your kids with this?
We had a lot of family meetings, sitting down with them and just kind of being honest with them, like the doctor kind of advised me, just be honest with them. And I just really tried my best to be honest and answer questions that they might have had. They were such pivotal ages, and they were still, I mean, this wasn't like a magic situation where we just said, oh yeah, let's have empathy for dad. Like it was still very hard. We were scared, we were scared that he could die. And so this was prior, like I said, to 2015. And so we just did a lot of prayer and communicating and continue going to the doctor. And she basically advised me. So she helped me. And then, of course, my spirituality. I think all of that helped stand me up. Otherwise, I would have also had an emotional breakdown because it was a lot.
Yeah, you talk about prayer and meditation grounding
Yes.
you and centering you so that you can do this.
Absolutely.
So
Otherwise, I have been able to be stable enough, really.
So I heard Destiny, your daughter, talk about depression. I don't know if LJ also kind of got stuck with that, but I'm sure he had his challenges.
Yes.
So now, what steps did you bring them through in order to help them to start to grow and heal and become separate from this?
Well, I think I started to see changes with my daughter, and I'm sure a lot of people, parents, you have to kind of look for the signals, wanting to seclude herself, always being in her room, a dark room, not really wanting to socialize with me and her brother. Her grades in school started to decline drastically. Destiny always loved to read, and that was actually something that her father and her bonded about. They would go to Barnes and Noble, and Lamar would just buy all the books in the children's section, and she would just like dive in books when she was a child. And that started to change as she became like 14, an adolescent, that tricky age. And so I had to get her into therapy, and that's
So these are all textbook signs. Like the 10 signs of depression in your kids actually is the 10 signs of depression in your kids.
Yes. And I saw that right away. Like she's just acting different. And I think that's when I got them into therapy. And that's actually the same therapist that has guided us. We've seen the same woman for like 8 years, 9 years. She's amazing. So I got her into seeing her, and yes, she was diagnosed with depression at 14. And that was tough. And she went through it, and we got through it. I told Lamar about it. And I think, like most addicts, it added to his shame and his guilt, because he felt guilty that my actions was causing my daughter to be very depressed and sad. And
the spiral is inescapable.
Yes. And that was like a major reality check for all of us, really.
So what do you see as so let's take us through some of the healing, because the journey's not done by far, right? But there's I did see Destiny speaking publicly, and the eloquence and the fact that she was just so available to people to talk really moved me quite a bit.
Yeah.
And she talked about forgiveness. Talk about some of this healing and some of this moving forward.
Well, that started to take place after Lamar's Vegas incident. Okay, after 2015, we didn't know if he was gonna pass.
So it went from tabloid fodder, annoying, terrible, just drama, to now it's life and death. This
Yes,
may be over. Something's got to happen.
something's gonna happen, and I was concerned because throughout all the tabloid fodder and all this stuff and things that I'm trying to keep my family together and intact as much as we can, you know, Lamar was still spiraling, and I think I wanted I wanted Lamar and his kids to have that closure, and I was afraid if he was going to die, that wouldn't happen. You know, I always tried to be. I always wanted my kids to have their father, even when we weren't together. You know, Lamar and I both came from broken homes, and both of our broken homes, our parents didn't get along. My parents to this day don't get along. So I always wanted to break that pattern. It's always been, always. So I was concerned that if he died, my kids wouldn't have that closure with him. So that was in the back of my mind, the whole flight to Vegas. Like, please, God, like, you know, it really was like, I just hope. Obviously, we could plead all we want, but when it's time, it's time. I was just hoping that it wasn't time, and it wasn't. You know, Lamar woke up. The kids went in there and they spoke to him because I know when you're in a coma, they
So
still
so
talk.
what? So you actually brought them to see him in
Yes.
that situation. So and then what happened?
I gave them their quiet time, and we went in and prayed on Lamar and myself, his aunt Janine, and the two kids. And we were in there alone with him. Then his aunt and I stepped out, and we said, "Just talk to him." I know that. Just in, you know, they talked to them in the coma and tell him you need him. You need him, and they did. We stepped outside. The next morning, he woke up pulling out tubes from his throat, and he woke up. And then it was like a whole nother thing. We didn't know if he was going to be the same. We didn't know anything. Because people were
Oh,
being loud.
slow down, Liza. Can we just start again because you broke up a little bit, and this is really important. So when you said you said that you saw a change in destiny in the hospital, go from there.
I saw a change in destiny at the hospital, like a growth moment, because there was so many different energies and personalities on the hospital floor. People were worried and scared and emotional, and my kids were witnessing all of that. And I saw a moment in destiny when she had to stand up and say, "Can you please stop? Like, everybody just take a deep breath and relax. Like, my father's down the hall. Like, we don't need this energy. Like, just relax." And I was like, "Who is this girl?" You know, it was amazing. And it was a growth moment for her, a moment of maturity. And from then on, I've seen, because she had her stages prior to that with her father of anger, you know, not knowing why are you not getting it together? Why are you not cleaning up? You know, why? And so she went from that anger stage to a growth moment for herself and for our family. And it's in waves, even since 2015. Since then, it's still in waves. But I think she's come to a point where she knows, because she's had to do her research too and speaking to therapists. It's the brain. It's not his heart that's saying, "Let's do this. Let's go get high and go on a binge." It's an actual brain issue and that instant gratification. And so I think learning that, she's realizing like it's not a personal thing. And that's why. And she said too, she wants to help kids her generation. You know, their generation was it Generation Y, Z, X? Yeah, she's
I've lost track.
yeah, I know. She's definitely not a millennial. She's that Generation X, Y, Z, whatever. She knows that generation. That's the social media generation. This is the video game generation that doesn't go out to play the way we did. Whole new monster that we're going to be dealing with. And she recognizes that, and we've talked about that. So she wants to kind of be that voice for them too. And I'm beyond supportive of that. I do feel like, why not? Like, why not A lot of those kids are dealing with a lot of drug issues too, and it's important. You know, you might as well, you have a platform where you're put in the public, you might as well use it to connect and, you know, share your story. And she gets so many DMs of young people saying, my brother's an alcoholic, and thank you for being public. And so we love that. That's really what it's about.
What's LJ up to?
LJ, I mean, he's still on the younger side, you know, he's kind of watching us, honestly. And like, he watches us when we talk about certain things or when we meet with people and we're networking. He's kind of just watching. And, you know, LJ loves basketball and he loves.
Yeah, brag on him a little.
Yeah, like he loves basketball. And I feel like he loves his dad. And I think it's tough for LJ because he is Lamar Jr.
Right.
And that's tough because the name follows him. And, you know, that's been something that him and I have had to talk to in the last year because he's getting older. And as soon as he gets into a classroom or whatever, people right away, you know the connection. And that's extra pressure on him, you know, and I acknowledge that. And I've had to talk to his father about that he's growing up different because of that. But I want him to be proud of his name and be able to say that, yes, that's my father, and yes, he's had his struggles, you know, but I love him, you know. And so LJ, yeah, but LJ is great. He's a quiet kid, and he's a sweet kid, and he's sensitive. You know, he's a Cancer, so he's sensitive. But yeah, he's great, and I think there will be a time where he'll be ready also to speak, just not yet. You know, he's not ready yet, so I'm not gonna push him.
Great. You know, I'm gonna put the link to the Breakfast Club interview in the show notes, because I really want people to see you and Destiny talking about this so eloquently. It's a beautiful thing. So let's sum it up a little bit. You know, so you meet a woman who has a couple of kids, and you know the husband is dealing with his own demons. What's your advice?
My advice would be to try her best to get him help. If he's not ready yet, you can't force. That's something we learned. You cannot force. It may take years. So help yourself, right? Educate yourself. Get yourself therapy. You know, if you're not ready yet, like me, with hiding my face on a online, you know, family chat, then so be it. But you get the support, and people knew that. They knew that about me, that I just wasn't ready. So do what you feel. But
I love it. Get yourself help. Get yourself therapy. Figure it, you know, like Al-Anon, an online group, anything to put the oxygen mask on yourself.
Absolutely. And then you're able to give that to the kids, like they say on the airplane, right? Like, definitely do that for yourself. Do it for your kids. Hopefully your husband will come to that point of wanting to get clean, but you can't force it. You can't. Even the tough love, trust me, we've tried that. The tough love, you have to be ready. The addict has to be ready. And I know it sounds so cliche because people say, oh, they're not ready yet. It's the truth. The tough love, you could lose your family, you could lose your job, lose your wife, you're still not ready. You can't force it. So you got to help yourself. You got to keep your sanity for your kids, for sure.
You know, Destiny talked about how she told Lamar that she was done with him if he was not done with these drugs and everything.
Yes.
And, you know, that seemed to have influenced this next stage.
Yes.
And it might not have.
Right. But that was after.
That's not a magic pill,
yes.
so to speak.
Yes. That was after 2015. Let's remember that. That was after Vegas.
Right.
Addiction is that's something that just doesn't go away. You know, it's not a cure. It's something he'll struggle with for the rest of his life, and we are aware of that. So Destiny, she had to give him that. She's just tired and that frustration, and she just said, like, you have to go back to rehab, or I'm just not going to talk to you anymore. And that broke his heart, you know. And within 48 hours, he was in rehab. You know, they're his only 2 kids, you know, and I know he wants them to be proud of him, you know. And so he made that step, and that's something that we have to deal with, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell me what's next for you.
What's next for me? I'm definitely still going to be doing my real estate, but I also am really passionate about wanting to connect with people and sharing my story. I'm working with Mic Drop now. I look as a fan.
So you're gonna do your story on the stage of Mic Drop.
Yes, which is scary.
What a great plan! I'm going to put the link there. A bunch of my guests have been on Mic Drop because that's just been such a wonderful place for real people.
Yes.
So I'll put that link on the show notes for everybody, so you know what Mic Drop is. It's a place. It's a place for people who are new and raw to their stories to actually bring it out and say it for the first time. And just put some tissues next to your computer when you click on Mic Drop because you're going to meet real human beings.
Yes.
So I'm really proud. If there's any way I can support you in that, please let me know.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited. My daughter's going to do it too. And Lamar. We're going to do it and share our stories from different perspectives. Yeah, Lamar's going to do it too. It's going to be the three of us. And this experience in the last few weeks has been, it's bringing a lot of emotions back that I thought were healed and forgiven. And, but they're kind of resurfaced, but I feel like it's all part of the journey. It's all part of the lesson. And I'm willing to listen to Lamar. He's willing to listen to me and listen to his daughter. And we want to go out there and talk to people. And just Lamar coming from his perspective, Destiny hers, her generation, and me, being a mother and being a friend to Lamar. I've known Lamar for over 20 years, and I've seen a lot of ups and downs. And so it's gonna be something.
Yeah, that is. When are you guys going to record this?
I believe we're going to try in the fall,
Okay.
September, October. I have to talk to Ellie about all those details.
That's going to be very, very profound, very challenging, and very profound. So I really applaud you.
Yeah, for sure.
Liza, it was such a pleasure getting to know you. I really appreciate you sharing so bravely and so real. I think this is going to make a difference in people's lives.
Hope so.
And to everybody else, I really thank you for your time and your attention. I love you tremendously. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.